What's up, everyone? Welcome to No BS Audio. Today we're going to be talking about the best earbuds for working out. This was actually a video that was recommended by a couple of friends, and it's something that I'm really passionate about because I've been working out since I was like 13 or 14, so naturally I've used a ton of different earbuds and I know what I like and don't like. Now, everything I'm going to be talking about in this video is going to be a wired option.
What are you using wired for? Get the Bluetooth earbuds. Why would you use the wired ones when you got the...
Alright, so full disclosure, I actually own the Sony WF1000 XM3s because Sony doesn't know how to name stuff. I've used them for a long time at the gym. Honestly, I just don't like them. I've had issues with the audio cutting out, especially when I'm at my gym that has a really bad Wi-Fi connection. The worst part is if they do fall out, they're gonna tumble on the floor and end up under some guy that's deadlifting 800 pounds, and then you gotta go try and crawl past him and find your freaking earbud. The other problem is that you gotta remember to charge your Bluetooth earbuds, and that's just super annoying. If you show up to the gym and they have like no battery left, you end up having to listen to the crappy music that they play at the gym, and that just ruins your workout. A quick tip that I'll give you, I always tuck my phone in between my waistband, like in between your underwear and your skin, with the screen facing outward. I've never had my phone fall out in this. Doesn't matter if you're doing pull-ups, or, you know, doing a decline bench and you're laying backwards or anything like that. Never had issues with this. When it comes to audio, I'm pretty picky, generally speaking. That's why I have a whole YouTube channel dedicated to primarily audio. When it comes to working out at the gym, though, my priorities change. I don't necessarily need a perfect audiophile grade sound when I'm working out and just being active. Myself and a lot of other people like to have more of a bass boosted sound profile. The options that I ended up with were the Sony Mdr Ex15s. These are kind of a control. They're only $8. I don't necessarily recommend using them at the gym, but they'll be able to provide us with some interesting information about what you get with a cheaper versus a more expensive option. The Zsn Pro, I talked about these previously in another IEM video I did. I really liked them, and I was curious to see how well they would hold up with more active activities. These are available on Amazon for $25. Next up, we have the Skullcandy set for $30. I actually used to really like Skullcandy when I was younger. I know that they're not the best brand, but I was kind of curious to see how they're doing now, and they do have a nice little retaining clip that seems like it should be able to keep them in your ears fairly well, but we'll test that. After that, I got the Sony Mdr Xb55s. These are $50. Now, I'm a really big Sony fan. I wanted to give these an option and give them some representation because they do have an option that fits into this category, and I didn't just want stuff to be kind of Amazon specials and, you know, Skullcandy, which people have strong feelings about. Last up, we have the Tin T2 Plus at a whopping $60. These won my previous IEM shootout, and I was curious to see how they held up in a more active setting. So some of the questions that I was asked to test for in this video was, how well do these things stay in your ear when you're working out? And do they hold up to light sweat? In order to try and make things a little bit more uniform and get some useful information, I decided to spray my ears with water 3 times on the inside of my ear, stick the earbuds in, and then run in place and jump around and see which earbuds actually stayed in. Just for fun, I also tested the WF1000 XM3s. They fell out almost immediately.
Oh, lost one. Is it 6 seconds, 7 seconds?
The cheap Sonys, the Ex15s, did stay in a little bit longer, but they did eventually slip out. The Zsn Pros did just fine, stayed in. The Skullcandies felt very stable, no issues with falling out, and I feel like you could totally go for a run with these, not have issues. The Sony Xb55s actually stayed in pretty well. Finally, the Tin T2 Plus stayed in just fine, no issues there. For the entries that passed this first test, I wanted to just throw a torture test out there and see how well these headphones could hold up for some really heavy physical activity. So in order to make this repeatable, I actually did some VR boxing. I put them in, I went through an entire round of boxing and saw which ones survived. This is a particularly tricky test because not only are you thrashing around and moving your head a lot, you're getting sweaty. You can't even reposition the earbuds because your hands are holding controllers. The KZs did just great in this test. The Skullcandies did really well. The Sony Xb55s did slip out. The Tin T2 Plus did slip out of my ear on one side, but they didn't actually fall onto the ground because the wire goes over your ear by design. Honestly, I think that the Skullcandies stayed in your ear the best. The KZs and the T2s did feel like they were fairly stable, but the Tin T2 Plus are a little bit heavy, so they're just not quite as stable. I'm not gonna get super in depth when it comes to build quality on all these earbuds, but I do want to make a couple of quick notes. both the KZs and the TIN T2s have a removable cable. I think anyone who's owned wired earbuds knows that at some point you're going to do something stupid and you're going to yank the cable and something's going to happen there. Usually the cable is the most common breaking point. I really like that these are removable because it means that you can keep the same earbuds and spend, you know, 10-15 bucks on a new cable, and it's not really that big of a deal. You can even have a backup cable around if you really want to. The Sony Ex15s just have a very cheap build quality. The cable feels like it's made out of a single piece of angel hair pasta, and I mean, it's just not going to hold up to any real kind of abuse. Even if you just twist these up and you yank on them, I could totally see the cable breaking. The earbuds themselves also feel kind of rattly, and I even had issues with the cable kind of making noise. As you're moving, you can kind of hear the movement through the cable, which is really annoying to me. Now, the Sonys do have a pretty nice cable that's flat. It's pretty resistant to getting tangled up. The earbuds themselves are also kind of plasticky, and I could definitely see them getting dinged up and damaged over time. The Skull Candies honestly feel like they have a really cheap cable. This is called a memory when it wants to kind of keep its shape and hold them in a certain position. I find that annoying. It's not really a total deal breaker for me. Other than that, I mean, they are kind of plasticky, but it feels like this material is fairly flexible and it doesn't seem like it's just gonna fall apart if you're a little bit rough on them. For my money, when it comes to build quality, I would probably pick the TIN T2 Plus. They're just a very solid all metal construction with that removable cable. My only problem with these is that the headphone jack connection is actually so thick that it can kind of become a bit of a weak link. When this is plugged into a phone, it's actually easier for this to catch on something and break. I think that that's kind of an oversight, but again, I'll give it a pass because the cable is replaceable. So now let's talk about sound quality for these. The Sony Ex15s actually have a pretty impressive sound quality for the price. I mean, at only $8, if I was traveling and like for some reason I forgot my earbuds or they broke, I wouldn't be mad about buying a pair of these and just using them for a couple of gym visits. They sound reasonably neutral, so there's not really much of a bass boost or anything like that. They're just not super exciting. There's not a lot of detail. Nothing really stands out about them. The only thing that really annoys me is that the cable just makes a lot of noise when you're moving around, and obviously they're just not built very well, so you're probably only going to get a couple of gym uses out of them anyways. Moving on to the KZ Zsn Pro, these are an enormous step up in quality. I mean, it's crazy the amount of sound quality you can get for this price. On some devices, I have experienced some like hissing or background noise. I will say that on my iPhone 12 with a Ugreen adapter and on a cheap Android phone I haven't had that issue. But if you're planning on using these with other devices, it's just something to be aware of. The sound profile is considered to be a little bit more bass heavy. They have much more detail than the Sonys. Overall, they're just like really solid. If you like listening to a lot of different genres of music, these are going to be awesome. They're not so bass heavy that when you turn on Led Zeppelin or something like that, then they're just going to sound like crap. You might like something that's a little bit more bass heavy if you primarily listen to rap, EDM, other bass heavy stuff, but these are very, very well rounded, and they're some of my favorites. The Skull Candies. The Skull Candy set have a classic Skull Candy sound. A lot of audio snobs like to talk a lot of crap on Skull Candy and Beats and other headphone companies because they really like having a boosted bass profile. Honestly, for me, these were just super fun. The bass is like so excessive. It's over the top and it's kind of silly. Honestly, I would not want to listen to these every single day and have them be my only pair of earbuds. For the kinds of music I listen to, they don't suit my style. But this is kind of like driving like a turbocharged Mini Cooper on the weekend. It's like, it's fun because it's different. You wouldn't want to live with it every day, but since you're only going to the gym maybe a few times a week and you're not using these all the time, like, it's just a lot of fun. For me, they totally fall apart if you're trying to listen to anything that's like has good vocals, or maybe that has like a really good guitar solo. If you like rock or metal, these are totally not going to be for you. But you know, if I listen to the right music and I'm at the gym, these are just kind of a blast to use. And an added bonus is they feel really stable in your ears. All right, now let's move on to the Sony Xb55s. I really like Sony as a company. I think that the sound profile they do, which is usually kind of a mature bass boost, the way that they do this on a lot of their mid-range to high-end stuff is there's a bit of a bass boost, but it's not like over the top. Well, let me just say, boy, oh boy, oh boy. These suck. These are so over the top bassy and so recessed in the mid-range, your vocals and everything. It's like the Skull Candies for me are fun to listen to, but these are just like stupid. It's like they were trying to just make the bass over the top as physically possible. Sony as a company, they make some really, really great stuff. I've owned several pairs of headphones. Like I said, I've got these. I've got the 1000 XM3s. The fact that they thought that this is gonna be like sound good to anyone just like blows my mind. I can't think of a single reason why you would get these. They don't have any sort of special way to keep them in your ear while you're working out. The sound profile is just terrible. The cable is like fine. It's so disappointing. I really, really wanted to like these, and I wanted to say, you know, just run to Best Buy and get these. They're gonna sound great, and you know they're usable for a lot of stuff. I mean, no. The Skull Candies are really fun to listen to bassy music with. These just kind of suck with everything I throw at them. I mean, I hate to throw one of my favorite brands under the bus, but I guess at least you know I'm not a fanboy now. Hopefully the Tin T2 Plus can redeem us. These are just like hands down the best sounding out of the group. If you really like a heavy bass type of sound in your music, these are more evened out than the other options. But the big advantage is that if you like to listen to things like metal or rock or other genres, you just like to switch it up, these are going to be a lot more versatile. I think that there's pretty much no argument that these sound the best out of the group. For me, it really just comes down to if the extra cost is worth it to you and what type of working out you're doing. These don't necessarily stay in your ears as well as some of the options on this list, but if you're mostly doing things like weightlifting, it's really not going to be an issue. I did things like decline press and pull-ups and all sorts of different stuff, box jumps, never had an issue with these falling out. So for the money, if you're just looking to get something quick that's going to work with more bass heavy music, I was actually really happy with this Skull Candy sets. They're not perfect, they're not built that well, and the cable isn't replaceable, but they do have a fun sound profile that a lot of people want when they're going to the gym. I know a lot of people have talked about how Skull Candies are not built that well. Honestly, I haven't really experienced that being true. If you're really hard on stuff, they might not last that long. These guys back here, those are Skull Candy Aviators. I've had those since I was like 13. They're still working. Now, if you're willing to order something from Amazon and wait a couple of days, I think that the KZs are a really awesome option. I mean, they're $5 cheaper than the Skull Candy sets, and they're a lot more versatile. They will sound really great with all sorts of different stuff that you want to listen to. If you like to switch it up and listen to different kinds of music when you're at the gym, you're going to be a lot happier with these than the Skull Candies and especially the Sonys. I think that the only people that aren't going to like these are people that want just like a really crazy bass heavy sound, in which case I would recommend getting the Skull Candies. Last up, we have the Tin T2 Plus. Like I said, I think that these are hands down the best sounding earbuds out of the group. These are a daily driver for me. I use them anytime I'm traveling around somewhere, and I really like using them at the gym. For somebody like me that likes to listen to lots of different kinds of music, I am happy to invest a little bit more, even if they do happen to break because of something happening. I wouldn't recommend these as much if you're someone that does a lot of cardio-heavy activities like running or even cycling. They're not going to stay in as well as the other brands because they are a little bit heavy. But for regular weightlifting and more light exercise, these are going to be totally fine. And I think you'll be really blown away by how good they sound. All right, so that's it for today's video. I've been No BS Audio. If you like this video, feel free to check out some of my other videos. I'll be doing more in-depth content on other earbuds, headphones, and other audio stuff. So if that's interesting to you, feel free to click subscribe. That said, I'll see you soon.